Insperity presents the Small Business Advocate Show with Jim Blasingame, brought to you by FedEx, CareerBuilder.com, and Palo Alto Software. This is a copyrighted production of Small Business Network, Inc., all rights reserved.
Welcome back. It's 12 after the hour. Thank you very much for joining me. Thanks for hanging out with me. My pleasure to continue to be with you as always. I'm Jim Blasingame, and I'm glad you're here. Dennis Pogue is here too. Dennis is a great friend of ours, a longtime member of our Brain Trust, one of the leaders over at Mount Vernon. And the last time I talked to him, he was associate director of preservation at Mount Vernon. But I think you've had a couple of promotions since then, haven't you, Dennis?
Well, Jim, it's always a pleasure to be with you. I'm a vice president now. It doesn't really mean much. But,
it means a lot to us. We're impressed as heck about that, Dennis.
Well, thank you.
Vice
you
President,
my mom.
Yeah, exactly. Congratulations, and of course that just means all kinds of new money, right, rolling in over there.
Not so much. Not so much.
Well, I know it's a labor of love you guys do over there, preserving and improving Mount Vernon and the home of our. Of the father of our country, George Washington, and so congratulations on your success, but also on your personal career success, but also on the success you guys have had and are still having at Mount Vernon. And yesterday was a big day for you guys, wasn't it?
Well, it was. Of course, it was President's Day, and so we celebrated Washington's birthday. It was a free day. I've not heard the numbers, but we had good weather, and usually that means we get about 12 to 15,000 people here.
Right. Well, is Washington's is President's Day a bigger day than the 4th of July there?
Yeah, it is. It is.
Yeah.
Because it is so closely associated with George Washington. Of course, his actual birthday is this Wednesday, and I'll go in early and we'll lay a wreath at the tomb. All the employees will come and pay their respects.
Right.
But President's Day is the public holiday.
Well, people are off that day, and there's not a lot of other distractions like you would have at the 4th of July where you got other things going on. But do you have any idea how many people were there yesterday?
Well, I don't know the final number, but as I said, we usually get between 12 and 15,000.
Mm-hmm.
The record was 17,000 plus a few years back.
Right. Why do you think there's still so much fascination with George Washington?
Well, it is an amazing thing, and part of it is just our fascination with the founding fathers, in general, is that the founding revolution and how our country got started still means so much in our public life.
Right.
And so you're always seeing those kinds of comments, and Washington being the primary one, comes into a lot of conversations.
Right. Well. Are young people? Are you getting the idea that young people? I'm worried that young people aren't getting the history background that I got when I was growing up. What are you seeing out there? What are you seeing with regard to how their attitude towards this kind of history?
Well, I think you're right, Jim, and certainly things are different. Part of it is that back when you and I were growing up. The history that we were taught was pretty simple stuff, and I think to give them credit, they're trying to do more and they're trying to teach more different things than they used to. But there's no doubt that the story of the founding and some of the things that we hold so dear don't get as much treatment in today's schools than they used to.
That's and I think that's unfortunate, don't you?
Well, I do. Although I'll tell you, I have two sons who they're out of school now, but I looked at their textbooks and was pretty closely involved with them when they were going to school.
Right.
Both of them took a number of history classes. I think they learned a lot of good stuff, but the problem is that a lot of kids just don't take history at all. That if you take history, I think you're going to get exposed to a lot.
Right.
But oftentimes they don't teach it, and so obviously you're not going to learn much if you're not taught it at all.
Mm-hmm. What's talk to us about George Washington. What, as you've worked there for a long time at Mount Vernon, and over the years, what has been your personal journey in getting to know our first president?
Well, I think that the thing with Washington is the more you learn about him, the more you appreciate him. When I came to work at Mount Vernon almost 25 years ago, I probably didn't have any more insight into Washington than anybody else. Of course, I learned about him in school, but as I've spent my time there and done research and had the opportunity to be involved with all of our many programs, I think the more you learn about him, the more you respect him, the more substance there is to him, and you can't say that about everybody in American history.
Right. Well, one of the things that I think about him, and I remind people about this at least once or twice a year in the publications that we do, that we put out here, about this one paragraph that was in his farewell address to America in 1796, and at his as he was leaving office at the end of his second term. This is a quote from that speech. "The name American, which belongs to you in your national capacity, must always exalt the just pride of patriotism. You have in common cause fought and triumphed together. The independence and liberty you possess are the work of joint councils and joint efforts, of common dangers, sufferings, and successes." The part I like about that the most is that he called us Americans. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying it's the first time anybody called us who named us Americans, but I feel like he did at that point. He named us with that speech. What do you think?
Well, Jim, certainly the whole last 25 years of his life, he was doing everything he could to get the United States going in the right direction and trying to instill that pride in all of his countrymen for what they had accomplished, which was, of course, it was a magical thing. It was practically a miracle that this country was created as it was. And so, he was looking to the future in almost everything that he thought about and trying to do the best that he possibly could to put us on the road to success. And that speech really was his advice to us, on what we should do to be successful. And the first thing is to band together, be proud of who we are, and work hard to make sure that we don't lose this wonderful opportunity.
Give us the website and tell us how we can find out more about Mount Vernon.
Sure, we're at www.mountvernon.org, and we have tons and tons of materials there. You can come on and you can find out all sorts of things about George Washington and, of course, the activities at Mount Vernon.
Check it out there, folks. When we come back, we're going to talk some more with Dennis Pogue, Vice President of Mount Vernon. Stay with us.
Insperity presents the Small Business Advocate Show with Jim Blasingame, brought to you by FedEx, CareerBuilder.com, and Palo Alto Software. This is a copyrighted production of Small Business Network, Inc., intended for the private use of our audience. Except as otherwise provided by copyright law, all other copying, redistribution, or publication without prior written consent is prohibited. All rights reserved.